Happy Wednesday, everyone, and today is the first episode of the new series that we are calling Lake Malawi Peacock Cichlids. Are you getting what you paid for? Now, real quick, before the special guest, who's going to be a special guest for the rest of the series, says his piece, I just want to give a quick lowdown on how everything is going to work. Essentially, Jorge from South Florida African Cichlids, check out his channel, is going to be doing a species spotlight at the beginning of every video series, specifically peacock cichlids. And then when he's done giving his species spotlight, I'm going to roll into some common fish that are misidentified as this species and vice versa. So I think it'll be a great series, very informative, and hopefully help some people identify some of their fish, or maybe identify a fish that they're looking at their local fish store, so on and so forth. So I'm very excited. Jorge, very experienced guy. He's a breeder as well as a keeper, and he knows his stuff. So without further ado, Jorge, take it away.
What's going on, fish keepers? Jorge from South Florida African Cichlids here. First and foremost, I want to give a big thank you to Unconventional Aquatics for having me and you guys for watching. So there's a lot of confusion with the identification of Lake Malawi African peacocks, and we're here to make sure that you're getting what you paid for. On our first episode, we're going to be talking about none other than the reddest strain of peacock. That's right, the ruby red, German red, Roter Kaiser, red Reuben, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same fish, and I breed them personally. So stay tuned for footage and information that's going to help you learn more about this fish, identify it, and see what it's commonly mistaken for. So here you guys are seeing my ruby red, Roter Kaiser, red Reuben, German red, whatever you want to call them. This fish is very misidentified. One of the main reasons is that you will not find this fish in a lake. This fish has been line bred to make him look like this. In the fish world, red means anything from orange up to red, just like a koi angelfish and goldfish and kois, you know, they call a fish red and it could be red to orange. So this fish is made to look from an orange to red. Many breeders, the redder they get, the more they charge for them, or like the better line it's supposed to be. Now these fish in aquarium light, they will look more orange, but in natural light, I'll show you a picture at the end of this guy is very, you know, red. Also, like LED lights that have red bulbs in them or full spectrum, they'll give these guys a better true color. The lights that I have here are very strong and white. But let's get more into line breeding. So line breeding is when you get a fish and you breed them to try to get specific traits that you want out of them and continue the line until you could get a fish that has exactly what you want. For example, if I wanted to breed this guy to have an orange body and yellow fins, it would take many years, but it might be possible. The Lonacaris turgranti malaria, or as most people know it, the sunshine peacock, is the peacock that is used to make this. Now, as you could see with their body shape, their finnage, and their colors, they are pretty much an orange to red sunshine peacock. So what breeders have done throughout the years is they start taking the fry or the juveniles that have the most orange out of those yellow peacocks, and then they breed them together. And this is what, you know, causes this peacock to be orange. And it takes many years for a breeder to get a good strain. So to identify these fish, you want to make sure they have a full blue face like this guy does. You're going to see that on his dorsal fin, on his top fin, he has a white trim on the top, and on his bottom fins he has a white trim as well. The color is very deep orange to a neon orange to an orange red. And overall, it is a very beautiful fish and definitely one of my favorites. Now let's take a look at some fry and see what these little guys look like. So just like most African cichlid peacocks, on the fry it's very hard to distinguish between, you know, which ones are the males, the females. At this point they don't have much color. These fry are almost a month old, And I'm sorry for the algae, but for the fry, it's a great thing because they love to graze off it. It's like one of the main sources of food for them when they're really small. Now let's take a look at some of my fish and Anthony's fish before we proceed to the next part of the video. Some important information to know about keeping these fish is that they do like a higher pH. Anything above like a 7.6 to a 7.8. Anything from that to like an 8.4 would be perfect. I've gotten them to breed all throughout that range. They prefer a high protein diet. I like feeding New Life Spectrum cichlid formula. That's what I've fed for years. It's a very consistent food. It's a little pricey, but I think it's worth it. The ideal tank size for a breeding group of these guys would be like a 40-gallon. I've kept them in smaller aquariums and have bred them, but I don't recommend it because sometimes the male is very aggressive and you have to separate him from the females. A bigger tank definitely gives, you know, more space and you could have more females in there with them. So I hope you guys enjoyed my part in this video, and now I'm gonna hand it off to Anthony.
So there you have it, everyone. George killed it. He is extremely knowledgeable on these fish, and just to kind of even further show his knowledge, this guy right here, who was ordered as a ruby red, has been kind of showing some question in my eyes lately as he colors up. When I first received him, he was solid orange all the way around. Then he started developing, well, not say he wasn't a bright orange, kind of like a real dull orange all the way around. And he seemed to have a, you know, to kind of look like what he was advertised as. And then he started developing that blue there on his dorsal fin. And George actually identified it as another strain of Eureka. Now, I'll put a clip in here right now of one of my bigger young adult Eureka Reds so you can see the very close similarities. So a big thing tonight, guys, and George actually hit on it, was at the beginning of the video, was all the different kind of names that the ruby red goes by. The ruby red, the super red, the German red. It is all the same fish, and a lot of times you'll see them sold separately as different fish, and I've even seen it in stores with different prices. As far as my case here, you know, I know everybody's human and people make mistakes. I've been watching this guy closely for a while, just because he is a lot more orange than my Eureka Red, especially all throughout his body, but he's not showing that color that a juvenile ruby red would show. And that's what I ordered him as, was a guaranteed male ruby red. I have contacted the seller, waiting on a response to see how it's going to be handled. But it's still a beautiful fish, as you can see. I mean, definitely a beautiful fish. So yeah, definitely interested to see what this guy fully turns out to be. This is a great example of why we're actually making this series. Because a lot of times you just don't know. I mean, you know, when I first got him, he was showing color, but not a lot. He wasn't showing any of these blues, and you know, you just gotta stay on top of it and monitor them and make sure that they're actually what they're listed as. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Big thanks again to George for doing the species spotlight. Check out his channel, South Florida African Cichlids. He's extremely knowledgeable in this hobby. Very down-to-earth guy, and he's always willing to help anybody. And yeah, that's about it. So hope everyone liked this. Stay tuned for next Wednesday's episode.